that there could be a time where the magnetic poles actually shift.
So this is science. They say that the last one was like 778,000 years ago, and we're like something like 200,000 years overdue.
Breaking developments are shaking the scientific world. Joe Rogan has just revealed something about Antarctica that mainstream experts are scrambling to explain. During a recent broadcast, Rogan referenced classified whispers and emerging evidence pointing to massive structures buried beneath the ice, which some believe could be the remnants of an ancient, possibly non-human civilization. If what he's saying holds even a shred of truth, it could rewrite everything we know about Earth's history. Is Antarctica hiding the greatest secret of our time? And why are global powers suddenly so interested in this frozen continent? Stay with us, because what comes next might change everything. What Joe Rogan found out about Antarctica. Antarctica is freezing, massive, and mostly forgotten until someone starts connecting dots that don't quite add up. That's what pulled Joe Rogan into the rabbit hole. While most of us think of Antarctica as a blank chunk of ice at the bottom of the globe, Joe was handed a piece of information that made him stop in his tracks. A map from the 1500s somehow shows the shape of Antarctica. That's a little strange, considering the continent wasn't officially discovered until 1820, so how could anyone in the 1500s know about it? Some people believe this points to evidence of an ancient civilization. If that's true, then we're not just talking about a few explorers getting lucky, we're talking about people with knowledge that rivals modern science. Joe didn't say this lightly. To him, it looked like a sign that human history might go much deeper than we think. He wondered if these were the fingerprints of a lost world, because how does something undiscovered end up on a map 300 years too early? Despite its massive size, 13.66 million square kilometers, Antarctica is barely populated. Fewer than 10,000 people live there, and most of them are scientists or workers stationed temporarily. It's one of the most unexplored parts of our planet, and that alone keeps curiosity high. For years, researchers, explorers, and theorists have tried to figure out what's really hiding beneath the ice. Joe Rogan, being who he is, didn't ignore the mystery. Over the years, his podcast has featured dozens of experts, from researchers and historians to conspiracy theorists and adventurers, all bringing their own pieces to the Antarctica puzzle. In one of his 2022 episodes, Joe invited fellow podcaster and comedian Sam Tripoli. That's when things took a turn. Sam brought up Operation High Jump, a real military mission that took place in Antarctica between 1946 and 1947. This wasn't just a casual trip, it was a full-blown US Navy operation led by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, with over 4,000 troops, aircraft, and military equipment. Officially, the mission was labeled as a research and training expedition, but Sam suggested it was much more than that. According to him, rumors have long surrounded Operation High Jump, stories that connect the mission to secret Nazi bases, government cover-ups, and even extraterrestrial encounters. Joe, usually the skeptic, was visibly thrown off. This wasn't just internet gossip. The details were too weird to ignore. Sam described how some believed the US wasn't just researching ice and snow, but confronting something powerful. And if that's true, then Antarctica might be more than just a frozen desert. It could be the hiding place of forgotten civilizations or advanced technology. On February 3rd, 1947, a massive US expedition reached Antarctica. It was scheduled to last 8 months and set up operations near Queen Maud Land. Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd led the mission, which, on the surface, was described as a scientific research project. But there was one detail that stood out. This research trip was fully funded by the US Navy. The size of the mission was difficult to ignore. Alongside Admiral Byrd came an aircraft carrier named Casablanca, with 25 planes, 7 helicopters, a submarine, an icebreaker, and 12 tankers. Nearly 4,800 people were involved. That's not a normal setup for a peaceful science mission. The official explanation stated that the goals included searching for natural resources like coal, testing how well military forces could operate in cold climates, and assessing whether military bases could be built on the continent. But something didn't sit right. Why would a research mission need dozens of aircraft, warships, and nearly 5,000 people. And why did many of them not return? Secrets buried in the ice. At the time, President Truman and the US government showed growing interest in Antarctica. The region was largely untouched and had potential strategic value. Some sources say the US wanted to claim parts of the land, but according to Sam Tripoli, who spoke with Joe Rogan during a podcast episode, the real reason behind Operation High Jump was far more complicated. Sam told Joe about journal entries reportedly written by Admiral Byrd himself. In these notes, Admiral Byrd supposedly described encounters with unidentified flying objects. These weren't just any aircraft. Some accounts linked them to leftover Nazi forces who were believed to have fled to Antarctica after World War II. During the mission, the team carried out large-scale aerial photography, set up a polar station, and reportedly began receiving disturbing radio messages. According to Sam, some transmissions included claims that the group was under attack and losing people rapidly. There was never any clear explanation of who they were fighting, but by March 3, 1947, barely a month into the expedition, everything was suddenly called off. The entire group packed up and left in a hurry, heading straight back to the United States. This raised an even bigger question: who or what was waiting in Antarctica? The idea of Nazis in Antarctica might sound like fiction, but there is a traceable origin. In January 1939, a German expedition traveled to the continent and claimed a portion of the land. They called the area New Swabia. For decades, rumors have spread about what really happened there. Some believe the Germans didn't just explore the land, but built secret facilities, possibly even a permanent base. Stories continued to grow, with some suggesting that New Swabia became a refuge for Nazi leaders after Germany's defeat. In some versions, even Adolf Hitler was believed to have escaped there, leaving behind the official story of his death in Berlin. Joe Rogan didn't claim to have all the answers, but after hearing the accounts, especially those tied to Admiral Byrd's mysterious return, he couldn't ignore the strange details. For a mission that was supposed to be peaceful, it ended far too quickly and with far too many unanswered questions. There's a story so strange, even Joe Rogan had to pause and think twice. Some claim the Germans didn't just explore Antarctica, they found something else entirely. According to Sam Tripoli, they may have discovered a vast network of ice caves beneath the continent. Hidden in those caves, he said, was not just shelter, but a fully functioning city. Sam went on to explain that the Nazis supposedly struck a deal with extraterrestrials. These aliens, according to him, offered advanced technology during World War II. It's unclear why such powerful tools weren't used in actual battles, or why the aliens chose to stay in Antarctica after the war ended, but the story didn't stop there. A deal with the unknown. Sam told Joe that after Operation High Jump ended, top military officials returned home and informed President Truman about what they had encountered. The claim was that the US had no choice but to cooperate with these non-human beings. The supposed agreement allowed the aliens to perform experiments on humans, in secret of course, and the locations were national parks and remote forests. Sam connected this theory to the missing 411 cases, a series of strange disappearances across American national lands. Many of the individuals who vanished reportedly had similar characteristics, and no logical explanations were ever found. Even though much of this sounds like a huge conspiracy, it taps into a deeper curiosity about Antarctica, why it's so restricted, why military exercises are still conducted there, and what really lies beneath the ice. One of the clearest reasons for Antarctica's low population is its extreme weather. Everyone knows it's cold, but most people don't understand how deadly it can actually be. The freezing temperatures and intense wind make it one of the harshest places on Earth. Despite this, explorers and athletes have continued to take on the challenge. Whether they're skiing, trekking, or doing scientific research, survival depends on discipline, preparation, and adapting to the environment. Staying dry can mean the difference between life and death. Joe Rogan once sat down with one of the few people who have completed a solo, unsupported, human-powered crossing of Antarctica. This happened in 2018, and it instantly made headlines. During his interview with Joe, Colin described what it took to pull off such a mission, physically and mentally. Colin explained how sweating in Antarctica could actually be dangerous. Any moisture on the body could freeze instantly, dropping a person's core temperature and risking hypothermia. Every small movement had to be calculated. Every piece of clothing had to work perfectly. Out there, one mistake could end the entire journey. Joe listened closely. This was about understanding a part of the world that remains largely hidden. Whether it's buried cities, unexplained disappearances, or frozen landscapes, Antarctica continues to raise more questions than answers. On the official Antarctic tourism website, there's a blunt warning that catches most people off guard. Don't sweat. It might sound odd at first, but those who've spent time in polar climates take it seriously. In environments this cold, sweating is dangerous. Here's why. When you sweat, your clothes get wet. In Antarctica, that moisture can freeze fast, especially the outer layers of your clothing. Then, as your body warms up again, those frozen layers begin to melt, soaking through and cooling your body too quickly. This can lead to hypothermia. For someone like Colin O'Brady, an endurance athlete who trekked across Antarctica on foot, this problem was constant. His journey involved hours of pulling sleds, climbing ridges, and dealing with non-stop physical effort. The risk of sweating couldn't be ignored. He had to manage his body temperature so carefully that even one wrong layer of clothing could put his life in danger. It might sound like a thrill-seeker's dream, but for the average person, visiting a place where sweating might kill you probably doesn't top the bucket list. Why visiting Antarctica isn't so simple. Even if you somehow prepare your body for Antarctica's deep freeze, getting there isn't as easy as booking a flight. There's a system in place that controls who gets to step foot on the continent and what they're allowed to do once they're there. This system is called the Antarctic Treaty, and it's been in effect since 1959. Back then, 12 countries including Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Chile, France, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, South Africa, the UK, the US, and the USSR came together to agree on one thing. No one owns Antarctica. Instead of being claimed by a single nation, Antarctica became a shared zone. Under the treaty, the only acceptable reasons to be there are scientific research and a small amount of tourism. And even those activities must follow strict rules to protect the environment. The treaty's purpose is to make sure no one turns the continent into a battlefield or a minefield. Industrialization, exploitation, and military aggression are completely off limits. Anyone, whether they're a scientist, a tourist, or even military personnel, must follow strict guidelines and obtain a permit from one of the treaty's member countries before entering. The surface of Antarctica may look empty and lifeless, but beneath the ice lies something incredible. In the 1970s, scientists made a discovery that changed everything they thought they knew about the region. Deep under the ice, they found lakes, hundreds of them. So far, researchers have identified over 400 subglacial lakes beneath Antarctica's frozen surface. These lakes sit under 3 kilometers of solid ice, shielded from the outside world for millions of years. Scientists believe these lakes were formed when Antarctica began to separate from the ancient supercontinent Gondwana during the Jurassic period. What's truly fascinating is that these lakes aren't just frozen relics. They contain life, microorganisms that have adapted to total darkness, crushing pressure, and extreme isolation. It's an entire ecosystem that's been sealed off since the age of the dinosaurs, and we're only just beginning to understand it. Underneath Antarctica's thick layers of ice, something strange has been happening for millions of years. Lakes have continued to flow. Instead of freezing solid, these subglacial lakes remain in liquid form, protected beneath kilometers of ice. One of the most fascinating examples is Lake Vostok, discovered in the 1990s. This lake sits 2.5 kilometers below the surface and somehow maintains a temperature of -3 degrees Celsius. Despite being buried under ice for over 20 million years, the lake hasn't frozen over completely. Even more surprising is what lives down there. Scientists have found entire ecosystems of microorganisms that survive without sunlight. These life forms thrive by converting gases like methane and ammonium into energy. They've adapted to total darkness and extreme isolation, an existence that rewrites what we thought life needed to survive. A pyramid beneath the ice. When people think of pyramids, their minds go straight to Egypt. The pyramids of Giza are the most iconic structures tied to ancient civilizations, but in 2016, satellite images taken over Antarctica captured something unexpected, what looked like a large geometric shape sticking out from under the ice. The ice in that region had melted just enough to reveal what some researchers believe could be the top of a man-made pyramid. If that's true, then this structure might predate the Egyptian pyramids by hundreds of thousands of years. The idea sounds wild, but the formation's symmetry led scientists to consider the possibility of human involvement. Some even suggest that this discovery points to a lost civilization that once lived in Antarctica, long before modern history recorded human life there. Unfortunately, the region is so remote and dangerous that confirming any of this is nearly impossible right now. But it raises a big question. Could Antarctica have once supported life? Over the years, artifacts believed to be thousands of years old have been found around Antarctica's edges. These discoveries continue to fuel speculation that a long-lost culture might have existed there. In 2017, a team of geologists from the Alfred Wegener Institute for Polar and Marine Research in Germany traveled to Antarctica to collect core samples from the ocean floor. They wanted to learn more about the continent's ancient climate. Their findings suggest that Antarctica wasn't always a frozen wasteland. At some point in Earth's distant past, the continent may have had a much warmer climate, possibly warm enough to support human life. If that's the case, then civilizations living there would have left behind signs, now buried under ice. Meteorites have shaped the history of Earth in ways we're still trying to understand. One of the most well-known events wiped out the dinosaurs around 66 million years ago. But according to several researchers and even a few podcast hosts, Antarctica may have been hit by an even larger meteorite before that. On a recent episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, he invited researcher Jimmy Corsetti and author Ben Kerwick to talk about ancient humans and extinction-level events. During the discussion, they brought up a little-known discovery, a massive meteorite crater found in Antarctica in 2006. This crater was uncovered through a joint mission by NASA and the German Aerospace Center. The size of the impact suggests it may have occurred well before the dinosaur extinction event. If true, it could be one of the earliest and most destructive meteor strikes Earth has ever seen. The idea that ancient humans or even advanced life could have survived such a catastrophe is still debated, but the possibility continues to capture the attention of scientists and conspiracy theorists alike. A meteor strike that may have changed everything. Scientists weren't chasing mysteries when they began their research mission in Antarctica. The plan was to use satellite data to track tiny changes in Earth's gravitational field. This helps scientists map how mass moves around the planet, like shifts in ice or changes in ocean levels. It was routine work, the kind that usually goes unnoticed. But something unusual appeared in the data. Beneath the thick ice sheet, buried out of sight, they detected what looked like a massive circular structure. As they analyzed the shape and size, it became clear that this was likely an ancient impact crater. The crater stretched for hundreds of kilometers, suggesting it came from a meteorite of staggering size. This wasn't a small rock that burned up in the sky. It was the kind of object that could change everything. Researchers started connecting the dots and theorized that this impact might have caused one of Earth's early mass extinction events. According to their findings, when the meteorite struck the planet, it would have thrown up massive amounts of dust and debris into the atmosphere. The sky darkened, sunlight faded, and global temperatures dropped. In the chaos that followed, acid rain likely poured down, poisoning rivers and lakes and causing widespread destruction to life on land and sea. Yet, not all life was lost. In the aftermath, a few small and resilient species managed to hang on. Among them were ancient shellfish and simple marine creatures, somehow surviving in the dark, toxic environment. Over millions of years, these tiny survivors continued to evolve. Slowly, they gave rise to new forms of life, and eventually, the mighty dinosaurs appeared. They ruled the Earth for more than 200 million years, growing into the most dominant creatures the planet had ever seen. All of that hidden history, buried in the ice of Antarctica, had gone unnoticed for millions of years, and it was discovered not through digging or drilling, but almost by accident during a routine gravitational survey. Access to Antarctica is far from simple. It's one of the most isolated places on Earth, and only people with a very clear purpose can get permission to visit. Even then, only small sections of the continent are open to the public. Tourists and researchers are usually limited to specific zones where they can hike, take photos, and study the environment. The rest of the land remains tightly off-limits. Those closed-off areas are controlled by governments and military teams. Some people compare them to something like a frozen Area 51. No one outside those groups really knows what's going on in the restricted zones, and the lack of information has led to plenty of speculation. According to certain reports, there have been cases where people tried sneaking into these classified areas. Witnesses claim those individuals were immediately intercepted by guards and taken away. After that, nothing. Some believe those people were never seen again. Governments say the restrictions are there to protect sensitive biodiversity and to avoid disturbing endangered species. That may be true, but not everyone's convinced. With so little access and so many questions, it's hard not to wonder if something more is going on beneath all that ice. Ever hear of the third man factor? It's something you might not think about unless you're an explorer, or someone who's braved some of the world's most isolated places. But for those who ventured into remote areas like Antarctica, this phenomenon is very real. The third man factor refers to the strange feeling that you're not alone. Even when you're in the middle of nowhere, it's an overwhelming sensation that someone, perhaps even a guide, is walking beside you, even though you know you're by yourself. This eerie feeling seems to be especially common in places like Antarctica, where the endless days of light and dark play tricks on the mind. People have reported strange sensations, hallucinations, and even the feeling of shadows being cast by nothing. It's like your brain can't quite handle the isolation, so it creates something to fill the void. One famous account of this occurred during an expedition in the early 1900s, led by Sir Ernest Shackleton. Shackleton, a well-known British explorer, embarked on a mission to cross the Antarctic continent by land. During their journey, Shackleton and his two companions were trying to reach South Georgia Island by boat. They stopped to search for food and shelter, but after a while, they began to feel the presence of a fourth person walking with them. Despite only being 3, they trekked for 36 hours, over glaciers and mountains, with the overwhelming sensation that they weren't alone. This phenomenon wasn't unique to Shackleton's team. Over the years, many explorers who've been stranded or lost in Antarctica have described similar experiences. Whether it's the extreme isolation or something strange about Antarctica itself, the third man factor is just one more mystery to add to the continent's growing list. The blood falls. And then there's the blood falls. This one's as eerie as it gets. In Antarctica's McMurdo Dry Valleys, there's a 5-story waterfall unlike any other. It pours out of a glacier and into a lake, but what sets it apart is its blood-red color. It looks like something straight out of a horror film, with the deep red standing out sharply against the icy white backdrop. The waterfall's vibrant color is so striking that it's been aptly named the Blood Falls. The source of the red color has been traced back to iron-rich salt water that has been trapped under the glacier for millions of years. When the water is exposed to the air, the iron reacts with oxygen, creating the deep red hue. It's one of the most unusual natural features on the planet, and definitely one of Antarctica's most haunting discoveries. In 1911, a geologist named Thomas Griffith Taylor made a fascinating discovery in Antarctica, a waterfall that flowed with blood-red water. This eerie feature became known as the Blood Falls. Taylor, who had led several expeditions to Antarctica, didn't know at the time what caused the unusual color. Initially, he believed algae was responsible for the discoloration, but scientists later found out that the true cause was much more complex. The waterfall originates from a glacier, which was eventually named after Taylor in honor of his discovery. It turns out that the water flowing from the glacier comes from a very salty lake, that had been sealed off from the atmosphere for millions of years due to the thick layers of ice. Over time, the salt concentration in the lake increased, preventing the water from freezing, even in Antarctica's extreme cold. The high iron content in the water gives it its striking red color. What makes it even more fascinating is that the water hasn't seen sunlight or oxygen in eons, which contributes to its dark, blood-like appearance. This natural phenomenon continues to captivate scientists and explorers alike, with its otherworldly look standing out starkly against Antarctica's white snow and ice. But the mysteries of Antarctica don't stop with natural phenomena. In October 2020, a curious discovery was made by someone scanning satellite images of the region. A metallic object, half covered in ice, appeared to be sticking out of the land's surface. It looked strikingly like an alien spacecraft. This discovery caught the attention of author Brad Olson, who was just as stunned by the sight. Olson theorized that the object might be the remnants of an alien spacecraft, left there thousands of years ago and slowly buried under layers of ice. The idea of an alien civilization choosing Antarctica as a place to settle might sound strange at first, given the harsh conditions. However, experts believe that what makes Antarctica inhospitable to humans might make it a perfect location for extraterrestrial life. The extreme cold and isolation could be exactly what an alien species would prefer, as it would be far removed from human activity and likely offer the privacy they might seek. The mysterious sounds of the Ross Ice Shelf. When a group of researchers set out to study Antarctica's massive ice shelves, they expected cold temperatures, shifting glaciers, and maybe a few surprises. But what they didn't expect was for the ice to sing. Deep within the frozen world of Antarctica lies the Ross Ice Shelf, the largest of its kind, stretching across an area roughly the size of France. And it has a strange habit. It constantly produces sound. Not the kind we can hear with our ears, but low-frequency seismic tones that quietly echo through the ice like a silent melody. This natural soundtrack is created when winds sweep across the surface of the shelf, pushing against snow dunes and ice ridges. The movement triggers vibrations that never stop, causing the shelf to hum continuously, like an enormous frozen instrument. These vibrations aren't just background noise, they're entirely inaudible to humans. Scientists had to install special seismic sensors to pick up the frequencies, and what they found was both unexpected and haunting. The ice was never truly silent. It was alive with motion and sound. Even more intriguing, the song changes. As weather patterns shift and surface conditions evolve, the tones from the Ross Ice Shelf also begin to transform. It's like the ice is reacting to its environment, updating its rhythm in real time. Researchers realize that by tracking these changes in sound, they could monitor the health and stability of the shelf itself. In a place where human access is limited and weather conditions are unpredictable, this natural song has become a critical tool for studying climate change. So, while it may look like a frozen desert from the outside, the Ross Ice Shelf is constantly moving, adapting, and quietly communicating. Antarctica is one of the last true frontiers on Earth. It's the coldest and most remote continent, covered almost entirely in ice that holds around 90% of the planet's fresh water. But despite its size and importance, so much of it remains untouched and unknown. The isolation, extreme temperatures, and harsh conditions make exploration difficult, leaving vast portions of the land and sea beneath the ice a complete mystery. What little we've discovered so far only adds to the curiosity. Singing ice shelves, ancient lakes buried beneath kilometers of ice, and unexplained natural phenomena continue to puzzle scientists. Every expedition reveals something new, proof that the continent is far more complex than just a sheet of ice. For all we know, Antarctica could be hiding entire ecosystems, forgotten history, or even clues about the planet's future. It's a place that pushes the limits of human exploration and scientific understanding, and while we still don't know what secrets lie deep within the ice, one thing is certain: Antarctica is not a frozen wasteland. It's an active, ever-changing world with mysteries that haven't yet been fully uncovered. Antarctica is a place full of untold mysteries waiting to be uncovered. From singing glaciers to bizarre phenomena, who knows what else is hidden beneath the ice? One thing's for sure, that the more we explore, the more we realize just how much we still don't know about this frozen world. What do you think? Do you believe there's more to Antarctica than we're letting on? Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments below.